Did you know California contains a crack so massive it reshaped entire mountains? Or that a volcano once split in half and drifted nearly 200 miles across the state? Or that deep underground, pieces of ancient ocean floor are still buried beneath the land? California looks calm on the surface, beaches, valleys, cities stretching toward the Pacific. But underneath all of that lies one of the strangest geological glitches on Earth, a shifting seam where continents grind, crust bends, and the ground quietly slides past itself. Today, we're diving into 50 geography facts about the dangerous glitch hiding in California. Let's get into it. Fact 50. The chaotic hinge at the edge of California. The San Andreas Fault doesn't simply end quietly in the north. It terminates offshore near Eureka at a place called the Mendocino Triple Junction, and this spot is tectonic chaos. Three plates collide here: the Pacific Plate, the North American Plate, and the Gorda Plate. But the real danger comes from how these systems interact. The sideways sliding motion of the San Andreas meets the Cascadia subduction zone and the Mendocino fracture zone all in one place. That means stresses in the crust come from multiple directions at once. Seismologists worry about a chain reaction here. A massive Cascadia megathrust earthquake could theoretically trigger movement on the northern San Andreas. So the fault's northern end isn't really an ending, it's a bridge between two of the most dangerous earthquake systems on Earth. Fact 49. The crack you can see from space. Most geological structures blend into the landscape. The San Andreas Fault does the opposite. From space, it appears as a long, sharp line across California. Straight valleys, narrow bays, and chains of lakes mark the boundary between two moving tectonic plates. The fault crushes rock into soft material called fault gouge, which erodes faster than surrounding rock and forms troughs that collect water. In places like the Carrizo Plain, the trace looks like a giant scar across the desert. Features like sag ponds and shutter ridges form where hills shift sideways and block streams. Even without geological training, you can follow the fault across hundreds of miles. The landscape itself reveals the crack. Fact 48. The discovery that changed earthquake science. The San Andreas Fault was formally identified in 1895 by Andrew Lawson of the University of California, Berkeley. While surveying the San Francisco Peninsula, he noticed unusual valleys and linear geological features cutting across the terrain. The fault's true scale wasn't understood until the devastating 1906 San Francisco earthquake. Lawson mapped the surface rupture and realized the fault extended hundreds of miles through California. Many people think the fault was named after San Andreas Lake, but Lawson actually named it after nearby San Andreas Valley. The lake itself formed later because of the fault's movement. Fact 47. The fingernail speed collision of continents. The Pacific Plate and North American Plate slide past each other along the San Andreas Fault at about 20 to 35 millimeters per year, roughly the speed fingernails grow. It seems slow, but the motion never stops. Over a lifetime, someone on one side of the fault can shift several feet relative to someone on the other side. When friction locks the plates, pressure builds underground. The crust bends like a spring until the stress suddenly releases in a powerful earthquake. Fact 46. The volcano that got torn in half. About 23 million years ago, a volcanic field called the Ninoc volcano erupted in what is now the Mojave Desert. Later, the San Andreas Fault sliced through it. The western half attached to the Pacific Plate and slowly moved northwest. Today, that half sits at Pinnacles National Park, about 195 miles away. Matching rock layers confirm both sites were once part of the same volcano. The fault literally split it in two. Fact 45. The creek that records continental drift. In the Carrizo Plain, Wallace Creek crosses the San Andreas Fault. During the Fort Tejon earthquake of 1857, the fault shifted the ground sideways by up to 30 feet, moving the creek channel instantly. Geologists later found an older channel displaced about 420 feet from its original position. Dating shows that movement accumulated over roughly 3,800 years. A small desert creek quietly records the motion of continents. Fact 44. The fault that behaves two different ways. The San Andreas Fault doesn't act the same everywhere. Some sections remain locked for centuries, storing energy for large earthquakes. Other sections creep slowly without producing big quakes. A creeping segment runs about 90 miles between San Juan Bautista and Colome. In towns like Hollister, sidewalks and fences gradually shift because of this movement. Scientists found minerals like serpentinite and clay that act as natural lubricants inside the fault. Fact 43. The desert where a new ocean is forming. Near the Salton Sea, the San Andreas Fault transitions into a rifting zone called the Salton Trough. Here, the crust pulls apart rather than sliding sideways. The land sinks between faults while heat rises from below, creating geothermal fields and mud pots. The Pacific Ocean hasn't flooded this basin only because the Colorado River built a huge sediment delta that blocks the Gulf of California. Fact 42. California's water lifelines crossing a fault. Southern California depends on imported water delivered through three major aqueduct systems: the Los Angeles Aqueduct, California Aqueduct, and Colorado River Aqueduct. Together, they cross the San Andreas Fault more than 30 times. A major earthquake could sever these systems and cut off about 88% of the region's water supply. Engineers use flexible pipes and rotating joints so pipelines can bend during ground movement. Fact 41. Two giant faults that may move together. Scientists believe the San Andreas Fault may be linked to the Cascadia subduction zone. Sediment layers on the ocean floor suggest that large Cascadia earthquakes have triggered ruptures on the northern San Andreas in the past. In some cases, the events may have occurred within hours of each other. Fact 40. The strange quakes beneath San Bernardino. Deep beneath the San Bernardino Basin, clusters of tiny earthquakes reveal unusual movement. Instead of sliding sideways, the crust there appears to be pulling apart. Scientists think deeper sections of the San Andreas and nearby San Jacinto faults may be slowly creeping more than 10 kilometers underground, transferring stress to locked sections closer to the surface. Fact 39. The fossil of an ancient ocean. Far beneath California's Central Valley lies the Isabella Anomaly, a massive slab of ancient oceanic crust. Seismic imaging shows this remnant of the Farallon Plate sitting about 100 kilometers underground. The slab is roughly 400 kilometers wide and up to 60 kilometers thick, preserving sediment from an ancient ocean floor buried deep beneath California. Fact 38. The Sierra Nevada quietly losing its roots. Deep beneath the southern Sierra Nevada, scientists detected a band of tiny earthquakes about 25 to 40 kilometers down. These quakes reveal a process called lithospheric foundering, where dense lower crust peels away from the mountains and sinks into the mantle. At the surface, the range looks stable, but deep underground its foundation is slowly detaching. Fact 37. A triple junction more complicated than expected. The Mendocino Triple Junction was once thought to involve only 3 tectonic plates. New research shows at least 5 blocks interacting in the region. Pieces of the North American plate have broken apart while fragments of the ancient Farallon Plate continue sliding beneath the continent, creating a complex network of hidden faults. Fact 36. The hidden Pioneer fragments. One of those fragments is the Pioneer fragment, a sliver of the Farallon Plate now attached to the Pacific Plate and sliding beneath North America along a nearly horizontal fault. Because it wasn't included in many hazard models, it represents a major unknown in Northern California's seismic system. Fact 35. The world's smallest mountain range. In the middle of California's Central Valley stands the Sutter Buttes. Rising about 610 meters above the farmland, they're often called the smallest mountain range on Earth. These peaks are the eroded remains of a volcano that erupted about 1.5 million years ago. 6 rhyolite domes form a ring of hills surrounded by volcanic debris, appearing like a geological island in a sea of farmland. Fact 34. California's extreme elevation contrast. California contains both the highest and lowest points in the contiguous United States. Mount Whitney rises 14,494 feet above sea level, while Death Valley's Badwater Basin sits 282 feet below sea level. The two locations are only 84 miles apart, one of the most dramatic elevation contrasts on Earth. Fact 33. Volcanoes hidden beneath the Salton Sea. Beneath the Salton Sea lie 5 rhyolite lava domes known as the Salton Buttes. They last erupted about 1,800 years ago. Today, geothermal plants tap heat from the magma system below, while earthquakes and hot springs suggest volcanic activity could still occur in the future. Fact 32. The volcano beneath Mono Lake. Mono Lake sits above a volcanic rift system. Around 300 years ago, magma pushed upward beneath the lake bed, lifting sediment and helping form Pahoa Island in a process called a cryptodome. The lake's calm surface hides an active volcanic environment below. Fact 31. Mono Lake's mysterious tufa towers. Along Mono Lake's shoreline stand tall limestone formations called tufa towers. These spires formed when calcium-rich spring water mixed with the lake's alkaline chemistry, depositing calcium carbonate over time. They are remnants of ancient hydrothermal vents and reminders that the lake once simmered with geothermal activity. Fact 30. The rare super eruption of Long Valley. Near Mammoth Lake lies the Long Valley caldera, one of North America's largest volcanic features. It formed about 760,000 years ago during a massive eruption that spread ash across the region. Such events are extremely rare. In the past 5,000 years, only about 20 much smaller eruptions have occurred, forming cones and lava flows. Scientists monitor the caldera closely today, but the catastrophic blast that created it appears to have been a singular event. Fact 29. The quieter eruptions that followed. Later activity at Long Valley has been far less dramatic. Most eruptions in the last 5,000 years were small explosive events. Only 3 produced lava flows: the Red Cones about 5,000 years ago, Negat Island around 2,000 years ago, and Paoa Island about 300 years ago. Fact 28. California's ground rising and sinking. Satellite radar shows parts of California constantly shifting. Areas near San Francisco Bay slowly sink, while groundwater pumping in the Central Valley has caused land to drop dramatically in some places. Meanwhile, regions like Santa Barbara have begun rising again as aquifers refill. Fact 27. Mount Shasta's explosive past. Mount Shasta, California's most voluminous volcano, has erupted many times in the past 10,000 years. Pyroclastic flows and mud flows once carved its slopes. Its last eruption was about 3,200 years ago. Fact 26. The tallest tree on Earth. Hidden in Redwood National Park stands Hyperion, a coast redwood about 380 feet tall, roughly the height of a 35-story building and the tallest known tree on Earth. Fact 25. The surprisingly shallow roots of giants. Despite their immense height, coast redwoods have shallow roots, usually only 12 to 18 feet deep. Instead of growing downward, their roots spread wide across the soil. This makes even the tallest trees vulnerable if erosion removes surrounding ground. Fact 24. Hyperion's rapid rise. Hyperion, the tallest tree on Earth, is surprisingly young at about 600 to 800 years old. Ideal coastal conditions, cool fog, moist air, and rich soils allow redwoods to grow rapidly, helping Hyperion reach record heights in only a few centuries. Fact 23. The giant trees threatened by fire. Giant sequoias normally survive fire thanks to their thick bark, but recent megafires have pushed them to the brink. Fires in 2021 destroyed an estimated 10 to 14% of the world's mature sequoias, showing how climate-driven fires threaten even these ancient giants. Fact 22. The accidental lake in the desert. California's Salton Sea formed by accident between 1905 and 1907 when the Colorado River broke through irrigation canals and flooded the Salton Trough. The resulting desert lake now provides habitat for about 450 bird species. Fact 21. The volcano that woke up in the 20th century. Lassen Peak in northeastern California erupted between 1914 and 1917, sending ash clouds more than 200 miles away. It remains the southernmost active volcano in the Cascade Range and still sits above an active magma chamber today. Fact 20. The alpine lake sitting on moving faults. Lake Tahoe looks calm, deep blue water surrounded by snowy mountains, but the lake sits inside an active tectonic valley. At 6,225 feet above sea level, Tahoe is one of the highest large lakes in North America. It's also incredibly deep, about 1,645 feet, making it the second deepest lake in the United States. The basin formed from normal faults pulling the crust apart. Tahoe also lies within the Walker Lane Shear Zone, where the Sierra Nevada block is sliding northeast about 12 millimeters each year. Earthquakes and hot springs around the basin show that movement is still happening. Fact 19. The giant earthquake most people never heard about. On January 9, 1857, the San Andreas Fault unleashed one of the largest earthquakes in California history, the Fort Tejon earthquake. Scientists estimate it reached about magnitude 7.9. The rupture ran roughly 350 kilometers along the fault from near Los Angeles into the Tehachapi region. Average ground offsets were about 5 meters, with some areas shifting as much as 9 meters sideways. Fences, buildings, and farmland were torn apart as the ground slid in opposite directions, yet only 2 deaths were recorded. California simply didn't have many people living there yet. Fact 18. The odds of another 1906-style disaster. The 1906 San Francisco earthquake remains one of the most famous disasters in American history. It reached roughly magnitude 7.8 to 8.0. Surprisingly, scientists estimate the chance of a similar event in the Bay Area within the next 30 years at only about 2%. That's because a quake of that scale requires roughly 20 feet of slip to rebuild along the fault. But smaller major earthquakes, magnitude 6.7 to 7, are far more likely on faults like Hayward, Rogers Creek, or the San Andreas Peninsula segment. Fact 17. Faults that store stress like a spring. Not all California faults behave the same way. Some creep slowly, releasing stress continuously. Others remain locked for long periods. Satellite geodesy shows that parts of the northern Hayward Fault creep gradually at depth, reducing the likelihood of a large earthquake there soon. But nearby faults, including sections of the San Andreas and Rogers Creek, remain locked. These locked segments continue storing strain. Eventually, that energy must release. When it does, the ground can shift violently in seconds after centuries of quiet. Fact 16. When the ground moved 20 feet in seconds. During the 1906 San Francisco earthquake, scientists measured the San Andreas Fault's movement directly. The results were dramatic. Roads, fences, and rows of crops were shifted sideways by several meters. At Tomales Bay, the maximum recorded offset reached nearly 21 feet. Imagine standing in a field while the land on the other side suddenly slides the length of a small car. That's the scale of motion the San Andreas can produce in a single earthquake. Fact 15. California's second hidden fault system. Most people think the San Andreas Fault carries all the motion between the Pacific Plate and North America, but that isn't entirely true. A large portion of that movement happens farther east in a zone called the Walker Lane. This system runs north from Owens Valley through the Tahoe region and into Nevada. It consists of multiple strike slip and normal faults. Together, they carry about 12 millimeters of plate motion per year, roughly 1/3 of the movement handled by the San Andreas. Fact 14. The largest volcano most people overlook. Northeast of Mount Shasta sits an enormous volcano that many people barely notice, Medicine Lake Volcano. Unlike Shasta's steep cone, Medicine Lake spreads wide across the landscape. It covers nearly 800 square miles and has produced about 600 cubic kilometers of lava. That makes it the largest volcano in the Cascade Range by volume. Its broad slopes form from hundreds of thousands of years of basaltic lava flows. Fact 13. A high-risk volcanic field near Sacramento. West of Sacramento lies the Clear Lake Volcanic Field. Its activity continued until roughly 11,000 years ago, very recent in geological terms. Because of this young activity, scientists classify the volcanic threat there as high. The same underground heat powers the Geysers Geothermal Complex, the largest geothermal power plant on Earth. Fact 12. Turning magma heat into electricity. Far out in California's Mojave Desert lies the Coso Volcanic Field. The last lava flows there occurred around 40,000 years ago, but the heat beneath the crust remains intense. Hundreds of geothermal wells now tap that heat, generating more than 270 megawatts of electricity for Southern California. Fact 11. The Bay Area Fault that might be overdue. The Hayward Fault runs through heavily populated cities along the eastern side of San Francisco Bay. In 1868, it produced a devastating magnitude 7 earthquake known at the time as the Big One. Since then, the southern section has remained largely locked, while the northern section creeps slowly. That locked stretch may be storing enormous strain, one part of the fault quietly sliding, another silently waiting. Fact 10. California drifting across the planet. The San Andreas Fault has been active for about 15 to 20 million years. Over that time, crustal blocks on opposite sides of the fault have shifted enormous distances. Scientists estimate at least 350 miles of total displacement. Modern GPS measurements still show about 2 inches of motion each year. Inch by inch, California continues sliding across the continent. Fact 9. The creeping stretch of the Hayward Fault. Satellite measurements revealed something unexpected along the Hayward Fault. The northern section appears to creep continuously. Tiny earthquakes between about 4 and 10 kilometers deep mark this slow, steady motion. Because the fault is slipping regularly there, it doesn't build the same level of stress needed for a major earthquake, but that doesn't mean the danger disappears. The southern portion of the fault remains mostly locked, allowing energy to accumulate underground. It's another reminder that faults don't behave the same along their entire length. Fact 8. A tsunami from thousands of miles away. In 1964, Alaska experienced one of the largest earthquakes ever recorded, a magnitude 9.2 event known as the Good Friday earthquake. The quake generated powerful tsunamis that spread across the Pacific Ocean. About an hour later, those waves reached California's coast. Crescent City was hit especially hard, with water surging more than 20 feet high in places. 13 people along the California shoreline were killed. The event revealed something unsettling. California doesn't need a nearby earthquake to experience destructive ocean surges. A distant tectonic event can still send deadly waves crashing onto its shores. Fact 7. A biodiversity hotspot shaped by geography. California's landscape contains an extraordinary range of environments. Redwood forests line the northern coast, alpine peaks rise through the Sierra Nevada, vast deserts stretch across the Mojave, Mediterranean climates dominate the coast. Because of this diversity, California hosts more plant and animal species than any other U.S. state. About one-third of all species found in the United States occur here. Of roughly 5,500 native plant species, about 40% exist nowhere else on Earth. The state's varied geography created a remarkable concentration of life within one region. Fact 6. A coastline constantly reshaping itself. California's Pacific shoreline stretches roughly 840 miles, making it the third longest ocean coastline in the United States. But the coast isn't smooth. It's broken by cliffs, bays, estuaries, and rocky headlands. These features are constantly changing as waves erode rock and rising seas reshape the shoreline. 15 counties sit along the shifting boundary between land and ocean. What looks permanent is actually in motion. Year by year, California's coastline slowly evolves. Fact 5. California's volcanic giant hiding in plain sight. Mount Shasta dominates Northern California at 14,163 feet above sea level, second only to Mount Whitney in height. But its most impressive feature is its enormous volume. Scientists consider Shasta the most voluminous volcano in the entire Cascade Range. Its massive slopes tower over nearby towns like Wheat Dunsmuir and Mount Shasta City. Glaciers cover the mountain, adding immense weight to its structure. Near the summit, faint fumaroles still release heat, reminders that magma lies below. Shasta may look frozen and ancient, but beneath the snow and ice sits a living volcanic system. Fact 4. Southern California's hidden grid of faults. While the San Andreas Fault gets most of the attention, Southern California sits on a network of many active faults. The San Jacinto Fault is actually the region's most seismically active. Nearby lie the Elsinore Fault and the Newport-Inglewood Fault running beneath Los Angeles. Offshore fault strands also cut through the Pacific. Scientists have even discovered hidden blind faults buried beneath the city, including the Purple Angel Fault and the Culture Boulevard Fault. Together, they form a concealed grid of fractures beneath one of the most populated regions in the country. Fact 3. The earthquake that revealed a hidden fault. In 1998, a magnitude 5.7 earthquake struck the Antelope Valley northeast of Los Angeles. At first, it seemed like a typical moderate quake, but scientists soon realized it occurred on a fault they hadn't mapped before. Aftershocks allowed researchers to trace the structure, now known as the White Wolf Fault. The discoveries show that even in well-studied regions, unknown faults can still exist beneath the surface. Fact 2. When water suddenly reshapes the land. Not every geological shift comes from tectonic plates. Water can reshape the land just as dramatically. Heavy rainfall can trigger debris flows like those seen in Montecito. Groundwater pumping in the Central Valley can cause the land to sink or collapse. Coastal areas sometimes experience landslides when saturated soil loses stability. Near Carlsbad in San Diego County, heavy rain even triggered a rare earthquake-related landslide. In these cases, the ground can change suddenly, turning stable land into a moving landscape. Fact 1. The buried shoreline beneath a modern city. In the East Bay near San Francisco lies a hidden piece of geography called the Emeryville Shell Mound. Long before modern development, indigenous communities built enormous shell middens along the ancient shoreline of San Francisco Bay. Over time, these mounds formed raised ridges beside the water. Later, landfill and urban construction covered much of the site. Today, streets and buildings sit on top of what was once a massive shell mound. The ridge still exists beneath the surface, a quiet reminder of the region's ancient shoreline hidden under the modern city. If the ground beneath California is always moving, the real question isn't if it will shift again, but when. If you enjoyed uncovering the hidden geology behind the state, Hit subscribe, drop a like, and let us know which facts surprised you most, and stay tuned for more hidden stories shaping our planet.